Thanks for joining us for The Drive Back, the movie podcast where we imitate our favorite thing to do after a movie, which is to talk about it on the ride home. I'm Garrett, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Adrian.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
And today we have a show and tell, which is what, Adrian?
A show and tell is where I have seen a movie and Garrett has not, and Garrett has seen a movie and I have not, and we show them to each other.
That's absolutely correct. We've each chosen a movie to show each other, and they could not have been more different today. The only thing they have in common is the first letter, and we have Push and Pulp Fiction. All this and more coming up on The Drive Back. Alrighty, yeah, so another show and tell. Two movies that are, they've got some similarities. They've got guns in them. They've got the letter P. It's really about it.
Yeah, I guess that is it. Violence, maybe?
Yeah, there's violence in both. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. First film today is going to be the one that you recommended, which is Push. Released in 2009, it was directed by Paul McGuigan and stars Chris Evans, Dakota Fanning, and Camilla Bell. Two young Americans with special abilities must race to find a girl in Hong Kong before a shadowy government organization called Division finds her first. And not the Division that we're thinking about from the Tom Clancy video game. This is, of course, a different Division. Or maybe it is the same one.
We don't. Yeah, that's not. You're speaking. You don't know.
That's true. We need to get some Theory Channel on here.
Speaking of Tom Clancy, thank you for joining us on today's podcast.
He's dead. How did we get him?
And Chris Evans, thank you both for being here to finally hash this out.
Well, so what made you pick Push for me to watch?
This is just one of those movies. This is the kind of movie that is a core memory for me in film. I was probably right about the right age to go see a film like this, and I just remember it being really cool. It was like a movie that had some kind of mental powers involved in it, as well as some superpowers here and there. And for a kid, it was just super fun, and it was probably a more gritty, realistic, quote, realistic depiction of what having these powers would be, as opposed to Sky High, which I think is what I probably had at the time for that superpower kind of movie. So I just thought this was a cool blend of action, kind of like the transporter meets superpowers kind of mentality. And that's just a fun childhood movie for me.
Gotcha. I remember seeing the trailer for this when I was would have been when I was in high school, when this came out, or just going into high school. And I remember then at that time, it looked kind of cool, but it just didn't really interest me. I honestly don't really remember.
I feel like that's the same now.
Do
you? I feel like if I don't know if you would have sought this movie out.
I would not go out, if I saw it on Prime and it was between that and something else that I was watching or something I was interested in, I would go for something I was more interested in. Which is why I'm glad we do these show and tells, because I'm watching movies that I maybe necessarily wouldn't have watched.
Sure.
But I guess I'll go ahead and start what I thought of the movie, because I was the one who watched it for the first time. And I think this movie has some interesting ideas. I think it's got a really interesting use of the mental powers, and this really, it feels like an immense world that it's trying to build. Make sure you remember that, trying. And there's definitely, again, just interesting ideas at play. However, I think the movie is just not good. I think it's in terms of the actual the story is one thing, the world is one thing, and I think that's really cool. But the writing for the film just isn't good, and it gets very convoluted. There's so many different teams, there's so many different betrayals, and just it felt like it was trying to be 6 different things at once, and it just didn't work for me. But
no, I actually, on the rewatch, I completely agree. I think it gets a little overzealous, or it gets a little bit ahead of itself at times. A little overly ambitious, I would say. But I will say that watching it, to me, this was super interesting. It almost felt like all of the confusion at the end, because I guess spoiler alert for a little bit here, but the idea is that none of them can know what's going to happen because there's a person that can see into the future, and if you know what you're going to do, they know what you're going to do. So the idea is that you can't know the plan, but you have to execute the plan. First of all, insane plot. Who decided to do that? Just as out of the gate, who did that?
Honestly,
But
if it was directed by Christopher Nolan, it probably would have been a whole lot better. I feel like this is a movie like that Christopher Nolan could have done.
this
Like,
movie crawled so Tenet could walk. But I will say that watching it again, I found this really interesting thing happen where it was complicated, for sure, but it almost felt like I was supposed to be confused because they were confused. So I felt like, yes, it did get complex and it did get confusing, but this movie almost had something to it that made it feel a little better than just a random complicated movie. And that was probably the plot, like you were talking about. That kind of made it feel like this was supposed to be happening.
yeah.
That I'm supposed to be like that. My confusion is part of this plan. So yeah, I mean, I definitely get what you're saying, and I don't think this is an amazing film by any stretch, but yeah, I just think it gets a little ahead of itself. But I don't think it's wrong for trying something pretty refreshing for the time.
No, and I give it full props, and the reason why it gets more points than I think I would have given it is because it's trying to be something different and new. It's not something that's based off of an existing property or franchise. It's a fully original idea, which
Yeah.
I give it immense props for. I also do want to talk about how the visual effects in this movie are pretty cool. And
They still spot on. They still hold up for the most part.
for the most part, yeah, I think more so is like the way that it looks. So especially with Chris Evans' character and the other telekinetic guy that works with Jaimin Hansu, like how they have like that shield around them and like they just like bullets and shit. Like it's just kind of weird. It's cool looking. It's weird looking, but in a really fresh and original way. But I do need to really stress how ugly this movie is. Like it's really grimy. It's really just
They put like a gradient over it for some reason that like emphasizes garbage. Like it, like, and I'm not saying that the movie itself is. I'm saying whatever. Like horror movies put that green tint a lot of the time, like that greenish gray tint, or they used to for sure. Like any horror movie, but this one puts like a tint that
it's like a
draws
yellow, orangish red.
Yeah, and it draws your eye to the pavement. Like you're looking at the trash in the streets of Hong Kong. Just super weird. But again, I kind of feel the same way about a lot of other movies we've reviewed, where I feel like it adds that core memory. Like it's such a unique film, and that doesn't mean good. It doesn't mean bad. It's just such a unique film in and of itself that it's stuck with me for all these years.
And honestly, if something is unique, if something stands out all these years later, it may not be doing something right, but at least like it has that staying power, and I feel like that
It's influencing something.
Yeah, exactly. So, but let's go over performances while we're at it. Chris Evans is a little. What do you think about Chris Evans in this year? Because you're going like yeah cool, and I was like he's a little flat and boring, but
no, I think I got the same Chris Evans as I did from Fantastic Four for me.
Yes.
Which I feel like at the time was 100% Chris Evans. Like that's just his character. That was his depth at the time. Yeah, that was his typecast role. And I think it's like literally they could be the same character, just with different powers. So that's the performance I kind of went in, and it reminded me a lot of it. But I also like that original Fantastic Four movie. I don't hate it. It's not the best, but I don't hate it. So for me, the performance was serviceable. Nothing to write home about, but he was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the best way of saying it. He was there. Like this is before the Captain America Renaissance for him. It's also before Knives Out, which is one of his best roles I think that I've seen in a while. I still have yet to see Snowpiercer, so I don't know how he was in that.
Well, that's if you've seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that's it.
Chocolate, you mean?
Yeah. Well, no, it's the Charlotte Factory. It's a whole different rating of movie.
Wow. That's a different title film. You gotta go to a different website for that.
Snowpiercer.
But like Dakota Fanning in this movie, I've never been the biggest fan of Dakota Fanning.
Oh, okay.
I thought she was decent for the role she played in The War of the Worlds from 2005 with Steven Spielberg. And she was pretty good, actually, in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I felt like she was, again, a little flat here.
I think a lot of this film it has to do with the complex writing. I think it lost itself a little bit, and I don't necessarily think that it was Chris Evans or Fanning's fault. I think it just were the characters. I think they did the best with what they could, but the story itself doesn't lend itself to any like standout performances.
Yeah, especially the worst performance for me was I forget the character's name. It's the one that they're looking for.
That's Camille?
The pusher. Camilla Bell, I think, is the actress
Yeah.
that portrays her. That was just the worst performance in the movie. She was just so flat to me. But I do need to get this off my chest because this weirded me out.
Kira.
Oh, Kira. Okay.
Kira.
This weirded me out. The fact that she and Chris Evans are supposed to have a romance, and she looks like she's under 18, and he looks like he's in his 30s, and they just have a full-on makeout section. It's really, really weird.
I don't know how old Chris Evans was at the time.
I don't know either. I'm actually curious now because it really, like that sequence really weirded me out.
So Chris Evans right now is this is the first time we've really gone and looked something up on the podcast.
We're doing some detective work here. He
was born in 81.
So he's 40 years old, and this was
the movie came out
in 2009. So
quick math.
Oh man, my calculator just came up on the recording. That's real professional. All right.
No calculators were used.
So 12 years. So he was 28 at the time.
Okay, and how old was she?
And Camilla Bell. Why? She's the first Camilla that comes up. Probably because I was looking at this movie. She was born in 1986. So she's
4. She was 24. Okay. So she was 24.
She did not look like she was 24.
But that's not what the law says.
And it was Hong Kong. It might be weirder laws over there. It just felt weird. Like, now that I know that they were both like legal age in the movie, they're supposed to be 18 or whatever. But they're clearly not. But, Chris Evans is 28 at the time. It just felt weird. I just had to get that off my chest. But as far as performances go, the only performance I really enjoyed from the movie was Djimon Hounsou, who I feel like he's just great in every movie.
Very consistent casting, though. Like, I feel like he always plays a very similar role. Yeah. But it's good. He's good at it. He always delivers.
I mean, I think this was one of the bigger movies he did after Blood Diamond. I think Blood Diamond was the first one that really launched his career. And then he's been really steadily growing ever since. And I can't wait to see how he's going to be in The Kingsman. The Kingsman, excuse me.
I'm so excited for that. I just watched The Golden Circle the other day. I'm so excited about it.
There you go. I'm super excited. We've been waiting for it for almost 2 years now. But as far as performances go, I think for the most part, pretty flat, pretty bland. But I think that's what happens when you get a lot of teenage actors or looking like teenage actors in the film. But we've already talked about the story. I think the story does get a little convoluted towards the end, especially, the big issue that I have is even the idea of the pushers, right? So how do you know anything that's happening is real? Because these people exist out there. Like, you have the leader of this division thing who is a pusher, and then he's affected by another pusher, so we don't know what their powers are like. We don't know if we see that pushers can affect other pushers. Like, so it's just reality just like collapses. Like, who's right? Is this even real?
What we need is a Push 2 where we find out, or Push Origins, and we need to know who the first pusher is, because clearly they've created an entire reality from their own push.
We need a what if for the Push universe. All the different realities.
Except instead of the Watcher, it's I am the Pusher, sworn to push and never to interfere.
Even that's directly interfering.
Yeah. directly contradictory.
I am sworn never to stay at the side and do nothing. I would actually, honestly, I like this. I like the concept enough. I would like to see like a
Yeah.
Netflix show.
Oh, I think
Push.
this could. I feel like this is more deserving than like Limitless, the TV show. I feel like this has a better world to explore and stuff to unravel. I think this is definitely deserving of a series. This movie got bumped up a ton for me on the rewatch just because it tried so many new things. I can imagine reading the script for the first time back then and being like, this is a new movie. Like, this is something that hasn't been created yet. And we don't really get that anymore. And to watch something so unique and so original was super refreshing. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like I've pretty much mentioned everything I want to say about this movie.
Do you have a problem with the score? I feel like you would have had a problem with the score.
I honestly don't have a problem with the score. I just had a problem with the overuse of like, pop music.
I thought you normally you mentioned that it's.
I mean, like I watched this almost a whole week ago now, and I completely forgot there was so much like rock, like 2009 pop music in there. And like, again, please, there is good uses of like I guess we'll say copyrighted music like that, right? Like Tarantino does it beautifully, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Also, like the John Wick movies, like whenever they're in a club, there's some sort of like, when it fits the sequence, you can't just put it in and be like expect it to tell the story of what's going on. Like the worst example is still The Old Guard from the Netflix movie.
Yeah.
When it's like, she's taking the elevator up to make the final battle, and the song's like, I'm ready for my final battle. I'm such a soldier. And it's like, oh my god, please stop.
This movie felt to me, it felt very much musically, it felt very similar to Titan AE. With like just absurd music kind of laid over every once in a while.
I would say Titan AE was worse with it.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, because it was much more prevalent in that one. Like it was, the purpose of it almost.
Was that the episode Lost to Time?
That was one of the episodes that was Lost to Time, yeah. We had one episode where we watched Road to El Dorado and Titan AE, and unfortunately, just too many recording issues caused that to be lost.
I think what happened is that I went against the Road to El Dorado's social acceptance, and the gods destroyed the archives of me criticizing it.
Like, there is one opinion about that movie, and that is that it is good. And anyone that speaks opposite, their career is doomed.
Now that we're talking about it, did you just delete the recording because you were mad that I didn't like it?
No.
I think I see a hard drive back there that just says the Road to El Dorado episode.
Throw it out the window. But since we're getting on off topic, I guess we'll get some final thoughts in for Push, unless you got anything else you want to talk about.
No, my final thoughts. I mean, I'll go first. It was my pick. I think this movie was pretty.
Well, I mean, I was the one who watched it first. I should probably.
Okay.
I watched it for the first time. So again, I think it has some inventive visuals. I think it has some interesting ideas, but I think those are lost under a convoluted story that gets a little too thick for its own good. Some really bad cinematography and some really questionable, if not just outright bad performances. And I feel like the directing also just wasn't there. I've never heard of Paul McGuigan. I don't know what else he's done, but if this is an indication, I probably won't go out and search the rest of his, filmography. But at the end of the day, first time watching Push, I gave it a 34.
Aw, that's so low.
The other big problem is, too, the movie was boring. Like, I really just, I lost attention probably 2 different times through them. It didn't help that there was a huge lightning storm over Southern California on the day that I was watching it. So that was also kind of like, wow, while the movie was still playing. I was like, wow.
Paul, the director, has done... Oh, he is currently directing Big Sky on TV, which is critically regarded as a flop. But he did do Emergence, Dracula, Designated Survivor, Scandal, and Sherlock. He did Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah.
Wow. So he actually did one good thing.
That's pretty incredible. I had no clue that he did. What happened? What was...
What happened?
Clearly, he learned from Push and learned what not to do, because that was 4 years later.
And then went back to it with Big Sky, apparently.
Yeah.
But what did you think about Push?
Yeah, I think this movie tries a lot, which I give it a ton of credit for. I said it in pretty much since the beginning of this podcast. I love when movies try to push the boundaries. I like when artists try to push boundaries and try something new. And I will never knock someone for trying a new script, writing a new story, and it not panning out. I think that discredits progression in the industry. So I didn't take any points away for this idea just not quite working. I did take points away for like the acting and it kind of being flat and some of the other stuff. The directing was not the best, but the complexity of the story, I did not take away any points for it. So I give this movie a 62. I don't think it's amazing by any means, but I think especially, I would say even now, if you're looking for something different to go watch that definitely doesn't exist anywhere else outside of this movie, a world that is solely isolated, this is the movie. It's not terrible. It's an interesting watch.
I'm honestly, because remember the other film at the time was Limitless. That was kind of like the.
That's why I related the two on Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of want to watch Limitless and see which one I would be like, oh, this one is better than the other one. I'd have to give that a watch again.
See, I think Limitless is a better movie than Push, but I think Push would have made a better TV series than Limitless did.
Gotcha. Alrighty, well, moving on from Push, we're going to the second movie for today, the one that I chose for Adrian to watch for the first time, which was Pulp Fiction. Released in 1994, it was directed by Quentin Tarantino, his first time on the podcast, and stars Samuel L. Jackson, John Travolta, and Uma Thurman. The lives of two mob hitmen, a boxer, a gangster and his wife, and a pair of diner bandits intertwine in four tales of violence and redemption. It won 1 Oscar for Best Original Screenplay and was nominated for 6 more, including Best Picture, Best Actor for John Travolta, Best Supporting Actor for Samuel L. Jackson, Best Supporting Actress for Uma Thurman, Best Director, and Best Film Editing. It's also worth it to note that, as of right now, Pulp Fiction is currently rated as by fans on IMDb as the 8th highest rated film of all time.
Really?
Which is very, very interesting. I don't know if I agree with that, but I'm very interested to see what you have to say. I did choose this movie. We scheduled this way out because there are a lot of high-ranking movies that you had never seen, and I wanted to get you kind of exposed to a couple of them. So I'm curious, what did you think of Pulp Fiction?
I thought it was good. I'll start out with that. I thought it was very interesting. To me, I got a lot of Requiem for a Dream vibes in the sense that all of the stories start to intertwine.
Yeah.
In a sense, which I just kept getting weird flashes of that while watching it and being like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I thought the story was super interesting. I think the characters were flushed out enough for me to feel like, oh, like, okay, I'm definitely invested in what's happening here. I totally feel like the violence, the sex, the drugs, it all fit the movie so well. There are definitely scenes that might make all the casual killing, like literally just people being shot and dying and nobody saying anything. I think that might make a lot of people feel like, oh, this is really way too violent, but I don't think so. I think it really fit the tone of this movie really well, and I don't think it would have been the same had they changed anything. I literally think this movie is kind of like a self-contained masterpiece, in that if any one piece was different, I think it would have flopped. I think it is literally propped up by so many very thin, very fragile, perfect sticks that if one of them didn't work, it wouldn't have worked at all. So I think it's very finely crafted and really, really well done.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have seen this movie several times throughout my life, and quick bias alert, I do own the film. It's one of the ones that I think everyone who is a film geek has in their collection at some point. But I think that this film is a masterpiece in terms of its writing. The writing and the dialogue for this film is so good. Like, this is how you write casual dialogue between two people.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like now you speak, now I speak, now you speak, now I speak.
Yeah, and literally, this is the movie you watch in script writing school because this is so just like perfectly written. The entire sequence with John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson in the car talking about the Royale with cheese, like, does it make a difference to the plot? Hell no. But it's amazing that you actually get that kind of dialogue in the film. And like the fact that they get to the house early and they're like, yeah, we got a couple minutes. And they keep having the conversation they were having a few minutes prior.
Yeah.
And then come back. It is so, so well written.
But that's kind of the thing where I was talking about where, like, if that didn't work,
the film
then,
wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, it would have, or if one of the actors or actresses didn't work, the whole movie wouldn't have worked. Yeah. It literally, this is like, it was a film that hinged on everything firing on every cylinder in the perfect way to make this a cohesive film. This movie could have gone sideways at 1,000 different points in this film.
Yeah.
Like, literally, while watching it for the first time, I was like, okay, this is getting out there, and then it would bring you right back. And it would kind of, like, keep doing this ebb and flow. But it totally worked. And I'm amazed it did. Really, really well done.
Yeah, there's one... I do have a couple of gripes with this film, though. One of them is very minor. One of them is a little bit more major. The one that's a little bit more major is the fact that these stories are not in order. And I think, I think that it's very jarring. And we'll go ahead and drop a spoiler alert for Pulp Fiction. So I think we both say go see it. It's one of the ones, like, if you're getting into film, you have to watch this movie. It's like it's in the contract you write somewhere.
I don't know how I avoided it for so long, but yeah, definitely go watch it.
But the sequence where it's following Bruce Willis, the boxer, and he goes back.
Didn't know he was in it, by the way. Big plot twist for me.
Great surprise, right? Yeah. Just show up in the bar and it's just him staring there in the camera at you for like 2 minutes. But when he goes back to get his watch from his apartment, and then he just shoots and kills John Travolta in his house, and then not even like 20 minutes later, John Travolta's back.
He is.
And you're like, wait, what just happened? It doesn't. So it's a little confusing, and I now that I've seen the film so many times, it doesn't bother me as much. But like, I had the pleasure of watching this with someone who had never seen it before. Quick shout out to Meg, and my brother's girlfriend, and she, you know, for someone like her who has never seen it before, it can be a little jarring. It can be a little confusing, you know, when you're not knowing that these things are going to happen in that order. So it is a little bit of a jarring kind of gut punch to get. My other minor complaint is that while the dialogue is perfect in the actual, like, the sequences where characters are talking to each other, those are long on purpose, like, because it's part of the dialogue. But there are moments when this film has just shots that are long for seemingly no reason. It's almost a little too indulgent, particularly when John Travolta arrives at Marcellus's house and to pick up Mia, and there's a lot of lingering shots of just, you know, him walking up to the house and, you know, doing the different things through the house. I feel like it could have been spread out just a tad.
I think this movie could have been way shorter, to be honest. I get it. I get the long form shots. I get the aesthetic. I get the style. I get all that. I feel like this movie could have been an hour long, though. I really do feel like the plot is, it jumps around, but it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it was very drawn out to me at times. For like probably 10 minutes at a time, I was like, okay, we've maybe covered like 2 minutes in this 10 minutes of actual content that's related to the plot.
I kind of agree and I kind of don't. I think you know, the movie certainly feels long, but I think after you've seen it multiple times like I have, and you're listening to the characters, the dialogue is really what, like, speeds it up. Like, it's part of the thing that makes the film go a little bit faster. But it is at 2.5 hours. It is a long film. I think it could have been at maybe 2 hours at the most.
Maybe 2, at the most.
I mean, I think honestly, if I had to be like super nitpicky, if I had to be like super like on the editing room floor, I probably would have gotten rid of the Bruce Willis boxer story.
The whole story
to cut out some time, maybe. Like, but that's be like being very, very facetious and just
Yeah.
kind of thinking, because I think the stuff with John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson is why people remember this movie so much.
Oh, absolutely.
And even with Uma Thurman and with Mia, like the dancing sequence at Jack Rabbit Slim's, and
The most iconic scene.
I mean, it's funny that in 1994 a $5 milkshake was insane, and now I go to McDonald's and I can't get a small without paying $4. So
Now a gallon of gas is that much.
yeah. And you got to hand it to Quentin Tarantino. I'd never actually do this in real life, but he makes smoking look really cool. You just got to say.
Well, at the time, I mean, it was cool. Like that was the cool thing to do. It was what you did.
Yeah. And actually, I don't know how many of Tarantino's films you've seen, but I think in every single one,
I've seen 7. I think I've seen them all now.
Okay, so like the Applewood cigarettes, I think is what they're called, Applewood. Those are in every movie.
Even in The Hateful Eight?
Yeah. So all the brands are the same because the idea is that it's a shared universe, like a shared world. I think the only one that's not is Inglourious Bastards because of like the liberties it takes with history.
Okay.
And I think like Jackie Brown, I don't think takes place in it either, but I could be wrong. I'm not a Tarantino universe like theorist or anything like that. But
okay.
Anything else?
Sounds like something a Quentin Tarantino univerist would say.
Sure. I'm not much of a thing, but you know,
I dabble.
I dibble dabble. But this is where, like, since this is the first Tarantino movie we brought up on the podcast, really, the use of pop music and like the radio is so strong, especially this movie and Reservoir Dogs, which is the other one they made before this, which are very key elements. I remember when we were watching this film for the podcast this week, and it's the intro playing the now song that's held as the theme song for Pulp Fiction, and then just halfway through the radio turns and it goes to another song. It scared the person we were watching it with because she was like, "Wait, what happened?" Oh. It's just great.
But I think it's also, to your point, I think it's done a lot better when it's done in films like this, because very clearly in the very beginning they make you know that the music is a character. Yeah. It is part of the film, and I think it's defining those lines, right? You can have music tell part of your story. You just have to let the audience know that that's the purpose, and not use it as an overarching, you can't hear the movie going on, you just hear a song that describes someone walking down a staircase, being like, "I went down." And it's like, no. You can use music as a character, but it has to be done well and it has to be done right, and this movie does it.
Yeah, and there's I was going to say, there's a difference between, like, Tarantino and Push, where it's like, this one's, like, Pulp Fiction is, like, you can tell that not only does the music fit the sequence, but it's also, like, something just Tarantino throws on in his home just to listen to casually.
It feels like that,
all the music in his movies feels that way. And whereas, like, the stuff with Push or, like, the Old Guard or anything like that, it feels very facetious, and it's like, you know, oh, you're clearly not understanding the story because we don't value enough of the intelligence of our audience, so we're going to try and get it across through music or try and make it sound cool and hip with the time. Whereas, like, a movie made in 1990s has music from, like, what, 20, 30 years before? Something like that?
Yeah.
So he's not trying to be hip. He's just trying to play good freaking music.
Yeah, and that's what comes across. It comes across as genuine, right? Yeah. It's not playing the new Rihanna song. It's playing something that fits the character, fits the movie, fits the vibe. But I do want to say, when you said the difference between Push and Tarantino, the director of Push has to be so happy to even be in this conversation where we're comparing Paul McGuigan
to Quentin Tarantino.
And going, the difference between the two. I feel like he's got to be. If you're listening, Paul, you made it. You are in the conversation.
Number 1, we'd love to have you on the show. But number 2...
Oh, that would be so good to do a watch through of Push and have him explain
every little choice.
So who's pushing this one?
But no, it's like, all right, welcome to the podcast, Paul McGuigan. First up, what happened? Yeah. You went from this to Sherlock to Big Sky. What happened? Anyhow, but back on topic to Pulp Fiction. As the first-time watcher, anything else you want to throw out that you had noticed about the film?
No, I mean, this movie's been reviewed high and low forever. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to say that you probably don't know about this movie already. Even if you have or have not seen it,
Yeah.
you know about this film. So I don't really have anything to add. I just am more chiming in that as a first time watcher, it is a great film. I don't think there's anything that I saw that was like, oh, I didn't think this would happen, or oh, this is way worse than I thought. I mean,
Mhm.
it just this is a movie that had high expectations, talked about for years, very, very well regarded, and it is a good movie.
Mhm.
A lot of movies fall short of all that hype and renown, but this one doesn't. So definitely understand why Quentin Tarantino has his prestige.
His pedigree.
Yeah, movies like this make sense. It definitely falls into that.
Also, and I guess you could say the other thing, that's similar between this and Push is, Paul, we're going to reference you again. This movie is also incredibly original. It just feels fresh.
And I think it's one of those movies, right? Like, if someone made another movie similar, people would go, "Oh,
Oh,
it's
it's
just a
just,
bad Pulp Fiction."
yeah. Or it's trying to be Pulp Fiction, or
Yeah,
whatever.
whereas if you do another Push, Paul, sorry, but people might go, "Oh, it's just a good Push," because because I think if this movie gets made now,
A good Push.
it could be way different and maybe
Yeah.
more engaging and better, just more well done. I think also probably Push. It was a little under 2 hours. I think given like the new standard for films being pushed to like 2.5 to 3. You could add a little more in there to explain. I think you could slow it down a bit. I think there could definitely be some stuff that could make it better. But Pulp Fiction lives up to everything that you could possibly hear about it. Nobody was wrong. So if you have that film guy in your class that you hate and he keeps talking about Pulp Fiction, it's the one movie he's not wrong about. You can go watch it. It's a pretty good one.
That guy is me, apparently. But so that's some nice final thoughts. Adrian, after your first time watching, what is your score for Pulp
Yeah, this
Fiction?
movie an 87.
Okay.
But I will say that as I said it, I'd like to give it a 92.
Okay.
I feel like it definitely deserves to be in the 90s. I don't think it's like a movie one. I'll probably never watch it again. I don't think it's one of those for me. I think this is one that I've seen and now I can talk to more points about it. But I definitely think it deserves a quote A. Like I definitely think it's up there in its caliber, and I think 87 is a little bit too more reflective on like my own personal bias of the film and not just how good it is overall. So 92.
Gotcha. And I think that's also very important to note too, is personal bias regarding a film. Which these scores and these reviews are completely personal opinion. So I
Totally.
mean, you kind of have to look at personal bias. But at the same time, just because I may not be a fan of one kind of genre doesn't mean I'm going to go into a movie of that genre, immediately hating it.
Yeah.
So, like horror movies. I've watched quite a few horror movies recently because I'm trying to get into that genre, and I've liked every single one that I've watched. So,
Well, there's a new Paranormal Activity coming out this Halloween, so I've been trying to get everybody to watch all 6 in preparation.
I'm I'm good. The Paranormal Activities, man. I just need to watch the new Halloween before Halloween Kills. That's all I got to do.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I think Pulp Fiction's masterfully written vignettes, characters, and dialogue are only let down by a length that's a little too indulgent,
Yeah.
and an order to the story that can be confusing for first-time viewers. I'm actually really close to you. I actually gave Pulp Fiction a 91.
Oh,
I do not think it is his
I
best
am
film.
blown away that I gave it a higher score than you.
I don't think it's his best film by any means. I still think that Reservoir Dogs is his best film. I would say that tied with Hateful Eight, but again, that's my personal bias, as we have talked about. But yeah, I gave it a 91. I still love the movie though, and I still think it's a must-watch. I feel like anything really above an 85 that we give is like a must-watch kind of level.
Yeah.
But that's going to bring us to an end for this show and tell. This was a good one. We had quite the divergence of different kinds of film.
And
But,
we did Paul McGuigan a great service, and including him in a conversation with Quentin Tarantino.
That's probably the first time and only time that'll ever happen. But Adrian, if our listeners are interested in finding out about new kinds of posts and when we go live and stuff like that, which we don't actually go live, but when the episodes go live, where can they do that?
The Drive Back Podcast on Instagram. You can find us there. We post whenever we have a new episode. We also talk to fans there if they have some comments on what we watched or their thoughts, or even if they're just excited about the episode. They go ahead and leave some comments, and we always like to comment back with a fun emoji or a thumbs up if you're really in good favor with us. If you want to listen to us and not see us, you can follow the Drive Back Podcast on any of the podcasting apps. That's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, any of those ones. We're there, and you can follow us and make sure to get notified because, again, every Monday we have a new episode come out. And then if you want to look at us and see our beautiful faces and watch us laugh and analyze and critique films, you can find us at the Drive Back Podcast here on YouTube, where I said here because I can see myself, so I'm here. Go ahead and hit the like button and make sure to subscribe and then hit the little bell because, again, every Monday we do have new episodes. And also here on YouTube exclusively, we do have exclusive content, and that's like if there's a new movie that came out and we both had a chance to go to the midnight premiere, or we got to see it in advance, or we got to see it right away, we'll go ahead and put out a special episode that's shorter format, more just a kind of a general quick review, just to get ahead of everybody else kind of that's going to go see it and let you make that decision a little better of whether a movie is worth your time or not, especially if it's a big one. So that's only here on YouTube again, so make sure to subscribe there or here if you're already here.
Yes, absolutely. You can always check back here. Also, as I've stated many times before, there's also my film blog, which I will link in the description down below. If you're listening, it is GarrettO'KeefeFilm.blogspot.com, where I do catching up posts every week and new release reviews. I would highly, highly, highly encourage Adrian to do the same. I think that would help, get some more ideas out there. I think, because there's a lot, you watch a lot of different films in your time than I do. In your kind of pastime, I feel like it'd be a lot of fun to see just how different the movies are that we watch week to week.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched Zathura, so
so I mean, already
underrated film.
But anyhow, that's going to bring us to an end for this show. Next week we are going to have a first timers. Neither of us have seen Jupiter Ascending, so you know what? We're going to tough it through. We're going to see, is it as bad as the critic says it was, or is it somewhat better? We'll find out then. I guess we'll have to watch that because that was directed by the Wachowskis, who one of them is coming back to do The Matrix 4. So,
I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see if it's an indication of where Matrix 4 is going to go. Maybe it's a pseudo sequel. But anyhow, it looks like that should still be available to rent on or to watch on Netflix. If it isn't, you can most likely rent it from anywhere you're able to rent movies from. But with that, that's the end. We will see you guys next week. We love you so much. We'll catch you next time on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday, and make sure to follow us on social media.